Democratic presidential candidate Michael Bloomberg is addressing why he decided to make a late start in the 2020 race. In an exclusive interview, CBS This Morning co-host Gayle King sat down with the billionaire and former New York City mayor in Aurora, Colorado. Bloomberg was there to release his new gun safety policy. He told Gayle King why he changed his mind.
I want to talk about you getting in the race, because when you were on CBS This Morning in September...
Are you sitting here going, I wish I had done it?
No, I never think back. There was not a road for me when Joe was in the race to get through, because we would have split the votes.
What happened between September and now?
I looked at our national government getting worse, the way we're behaving overseas and domestically, led by our president. I said back in 2016, he is the wrong person for the job. He doesn't have the temperament or the ethics, the intellect to do the job. And I watched and I said, we just can't have another 4 years of this. And then I watched all the candidates and I just thought to myself, Donald Trump would eat him up.
You think all the candidates who are running today, he would eat them up?
Let me rephrase it. I think that I would do the best job of competing with him and beating him.
One of the other things you said in September was that Joe Biden is a friend. Did you talk to Joe Biden ahead of time to say I'm getting in?
No, I did not.
Do you still consider him a friend?
Yeah, sure. Why would he not be?
I don't know. I'm thinking with friends like you, who needs enemies?
You are friendly with other great TV presenters in the morning.
Yes.
And you're all competing for the same get.
But I'm not trying to take their job.
Well, I'm not trying to take his job either. He doesn't have the job of President of the United States, and neither do I. At the moment, the person that has it is Donald Trump. I'm trying to take away the job from Donald Trump.
Nobody's saying, Mayor Bloomberg, meh. They either say, oh, thank God he's getting in, thank God, now I know I'm going to vote for. Or I hear, what the hell is he thinking? Is this a big ego stroke? Well, how do you respond to both of those?
The second one, I have the same rights as anybody else. Does it take an ego? Yeah, I guess it takes an ego to think that you could do the job. I have 12 years of experience in City Hall, and I think if you go back today and ask most people about those 12 years, they would say that not me, but the team that I put together made an enormous difference in New York City, and New York City benefited from it and continues to benefit from it today from what we did then.
The next debate is December, and Cory Booker said that it could possibly be, on that debate stage, no one of color. There would be more billionaires in the race than black people. Is that a problem to you?
Cory Booker endorsed me a number of times, and I endorsed Cory Booker a number of times. He's very well spoken. He's got some good ideas. It would be better the more diverse any group is, but the public is out there picking and choosing and narrowing down this field. The truth of the matter is you had a lot of diversity in the candidates, some of whom were very competent. Why they aren't there as you narrowed it down, you have to talk to other people who are experts. I don't know.
Part of the conversation is, here we go, another old white gentleman. Isn't it time for change? Isn't it time for something new?
It may be, but lots of people can enter. There was no reason, if you wanted to enter and run for President of the United States, you could have done that. But don't complain to me that you're not in the race. It was up to you. And I thought there was a lot of diversity in the group of Democratic aspirants. Entry is not a barrier.
So you're saying if you want diversity, then get in.
That is exactly a good way to phrase it. Thank you very much.
I want to bring in Alexandra Jaffe. She's a national political reporter for the Associated Press. Okay, Alexandra, you know, the critics of Bloomberg might say that he could have used this money to field other diverse candidates instead of jumping in the race himself. What do you make of his response to Booker's remarks?
Absolutely. I mean, it's hard to deny that there are structural barriers to minority candidates in this race. Look, for example, at the DNC's debate qualification requirements. The grassroots fundraising requirement typically favors potentially white candidates. I mean, if you look at grassroots donors, they tend to lean more white, older, more affluent. Even big dollar donors lean in the same way. And so Booker has been criticizing some of these requirements as keeping sort of minority candidates from being successful in the race. And insofar as fundraising helps you get on air and run ads and get your name out there and increase your polling. That also is a requirement for the DNC debates. There are barriers to that as well. I spoke with a Booker donor who tried to start up a super PAC for him but struggled to raise money, and he said he was hearing from some donors a sense that black candidates can't beat Donald Trump. So while Michael Bloomberg has a point, you know, the field was diverse, a number of candidates dropped out, it seems that he's not addressing some of those structural barriers to some of these minority candidates that do exist.
You know, speaking of Booker, I actually spoke to his national press secretary yesterday, Sabrina, saying she still remains optimistic that the campaign can actually draw some of Kamala Harris's supporters between now and the caucus. But, you know, Booker is pretty much at a make or break moment right now. How does he sort of get ahead at this point and gain any traction?
Absolutely, and they're aware of that. He gave sort of another big speech yesterday in Des Moines where he tried to set the stakes. He said it will be damaging for the Democratic Party if we don't have a nominee that reflects the diversity of the Democratic Party, and made the case that he's the only remaining candidate that can recreate the Obama coalition, the coalition of voters that got Obama elected. The problem for Booker is he's been making this case since day one of his campaign, and it has yet to catch on. Though they do see Kamala Harris's exit from the race as something that sort of underscores the significance and the importance of his candidacy. He's only got another week, though, to qualify in polling for the debate, and even some of his own supporters are skeptical, so it's a tough spot he's in, but they do plan to stay in through the caucuses regardless of whether they make the debate stage.
And then, you know, there's former Vice President Joe Biden. He's nearing the end of an 8-day bus tour in Iowa that he'll finish. The No Malarkey tour ends tomorrow in Cedar Rapids. But in an interview for Axios on HBO, Biden addresses the state of the Democratic Party. I want to play that for you.
Medicare for all. Do you think that's political
The party's
suicide?
not there. The party's not there at all.
So, some of your opponents are.
Yeah, but the party's not there. You know the numbers.
What do you think?
You guys got it all wrong about what happened, and what
You sound
happened.
like Trump.
Yeah,
Fake
I
news?
do. No, look, you know, it's not fake. It's just bad judgment. You all thought that what happened was the party moved extremely to the left after Hillary. AOC was the new party. She's a bright, wonderful person. But where's the party? Come on, man.
Is that the message at this point that Biden's trying to push out in Iowa?
That is somewhat the theory of his case in Iowa, where they believe the electorate will tend to lean a little bit more moderate than in some other states. Biden's team in Iowa believes that he can be sort of viable, that he can appeal to the widest number of voters across the state, both in rural and suburban and urban areas. And so as he's been in the state this week on an 8-day bus tour, he has been making the case that he's the one that can unify the party, that he has the widest appeal, and that the party doesn't lean as far left as some of the more progressive candidates in the race. Now, he's already faced a controversy there. He faced some questions about his son Hunter's work in the Ukraine, but he stood up to that questioner and sort of pushed back. So it's been a pretty good bus tour for him. He's gotten a lot of positive sort of coverage and support out of that.
And Alexandra, you've reported, and I want to quote here on your reporting, the Biden team is laser focused on the viability threshold, requiring candidates to get 15% support in a given precinct to have votes counted towards delegates. Can you explain sort of the math on this? Why do they think that really plays in their favor?
Sure. Well, when we're talking about these precinct caucuses, we're talking about those small gatherings in sort of high school gymnasiums across Iowa. There's about 1,700 of those. And the more you can be viable in the more precinct caucuses, the more likely you're able to get delegates at the end of the day. And Biden's team feels that the former vice president has the widest amount of appeal to folks in rural areas, suburban areas, cities. And so he can sort of stay above that 15% level in the widest number of those 1,700 precincts. If he's able to do that, he could end the night potentially not with the most support, but with the most number of delegates, because he's got that broadest appeal across the state.
I want to ask you about Mayor Pete Buttigieg. He's facing some renewed questions about his time working for the consulting firm McKinsey. He says he signed a non-disclosure agreement. That non-disclosure forbids him from discussing what he did and who his clients were. Senator Elizabeth Warren was actually asked about this last night.
I think that voters want to know about possible conflicts of interest. It is even more important that the candidates expose possible conflicts of interest right now. And that means, for example, that the mayor should be releasing who's on his finance committee, who are the bundlers who are raising big money for him, who he's given titles to and made promises to, and he should open up the doors so that the press can follow the promises that he's making in these big dollar fundraisers.
So the mayor's senior advisor, Liz Smith, fired back on Twitter, and she wrote, if Elizabeth Warren wants to have a debate about transparency, she can start by opening up the doors to the decades of tax returns she's hiding from her work as a corporate lawyer, often defending the types of corporate bad actors she now denounces. So this morning, Buttigieg said that McKenzie should actually release the list of clients that he's served. Do you think that this is going to be an issue to sort of percolate over in the coming weeks?
I think absolutely. To begin with, since he can't sort of share publicly who his clients were, there's going to be continued questions about what exactly happened. It's such a murky experience that until he gets all of that information out there and can really address some of the work that McKinsey did, those questions will be open questions. But it's also given his opponents an opportunity, like Elizabeth Warren, to attack him on other issues, like his fundraisers that are closed-door, big money fundraisers. And so as some of his opponents see Buttigieg rising, particularly in Iowa, he's been a challenge to Warren and may have peeled some support away from her. They're going to look for opportunities to go after him. I mean, this is a rare sort of moment where Elizabeth Warren is drawing a contrast and going after one of her opponents, and it's not one that I expect she'll let go.
Alexandra Jaffe, I want to thank you very much for joining us.